Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Senna, and on this channel I post content relating to my life living abroad as an international student and everything else in between. So I've been trying to share content relating to the process that you need to go through to come abroad to study as well, if that is a plan that you have for your future. So yes, if those are things that you're interested in knowing more about, if you're interested in all these informative content that I have to share, then please consider joining the family. Just click on the red subscribe button down below and also click on the bell icon close to it so that I don't miss any new videos I upload. So I've shared a couple of social work related videos in the past, and I've had a few people ask that I talk about, the personal statements and as well as other things as well. So in today's video, I am going to be talking about writing a personal statement for your social work and master's application. I'm going to be sharing a few tips on how I went about writing mine, as well as general tips. These are things that you are specific to social work, but I believe you can use for other courses as well. At the end of the video, I would go through my personal statement, the one I use to do my applications, and hopefully you can pick a point or two from it, which would aid you in writing your own personal statements as well. So if you're interested in what I have to share today, then keep on watching. Okay guys, so first things first, like what is a personal statement? Like, it's simply like an essay that you attach to your application. Like, it's really an opportunity for you to tell the school, the university, what your motivation is for wanting to study that course, as well as your suitability for the course. What's your experience, what's your skills, like what skills do you have that are relevant for the course that you are trying to apply for. Like, why are you picking the institution, why are you choosing the UK as your study destination if this is where you're applying to, like things like that really. So usually when you're applying for your course, like I've mentioned in previous videos, there are some documents or some key requirements that you need to meet, like attaching your university certificates, your transcripts, English language and proficiency requirements, things like that. And the personal statement is one of the documents that you need to apply for most, you need to attach, for most of the applications that you need to make. Depending on how many schools you're applying for, you might want to tailor this personal statement for each school, as well as each course that you're applying for, if you're applying for different courses, right? So yes, so that is really what the personal statement is. And for social work, you definitely would need to attach your personal statements to your application. So when I was applying for mine, I applied through UCAS, which is a platform where you can apply to most universities through. And the way UCAS works is that you just submit like one application, especially if you're applying to multiple schools for the same course. And that is what I did. You have the opportunity to select up to 5 schools, I think, on UCAS. So that's what I did. I submitted just one application, and UCAS sent my application to all these schools. So that meant that I couldn't really tailor my personal statement to one particular school. So I wrote it in such a way that it could be sent to several schools, and then they'll read it, and to be like I wrote it specifically for them. Not specifically, like it's just a general interest that I expressed in the course that would be applicable for any school at all that my personal statement is presented to. So yes, you need to be mindful of that. If you are submitting individual applications to school, then you have to be mindful of you have the opportunity to really tailor the personal statements to that particular school, if that makes sense. So yes, that's what a personal statement is. So this video is specifically for social work, but I believe that the points that I'll be sharing they're just general points that you can really tailor to any course at all that you're applying for. So the first thing that I would say is that when it comes to writing your personal statements, you really need to know about the course that you're trying to apply for. So here I'm talking about social work. Like, you really need to do your research into what social work is all about. Like, what is social work? What are the roles and responsibilities of a social worker? Like, what would your day-to-day life and potentially look like as a social worker? You need to do your research. You can start from the university's website. Usually they'll give a brief background about what the course is about. You want to familiarize yourself with that, and then from there you kind of snowball to reading, other things about social work. That way, like, you gain, more knowledge about what you are going into. It also helps you to really define or establish if this is something that you'd really be interested in, and is this something that you see yourself doing in future. Is this a career path that you see yourself, sticking with? So doing this research would help you to know the course, like, into details, as well as, establishing if this is something that you want to go into. Because as you're doing the research, you'd see the pros and the cons, right? Like, there are downsides to any career path that you choose. So you get to know all these things beforehand, so that you make, decisions. You make an informed decision, I would say. So yes, that's one thing that I'd like to say. And then secondly, you need to start thinking after you've done this research and you're familiar with the course, you're familiar with social work. This is what social workers do. This is what their lives look like. This is what I could potentially end up doing if I decide to go down this path. Then you now have to sit back and think about your own experiences, your educational experience. Maybe you've worked as well. So you have to think about your work experience. How does this relate to social work? So many things can be related to social work. So many careers. I did HR, and I was able to think about transferable skills that I can bring into the field of social work. So you just need to, even if you did accounting or computing, engineering, whatever, like, there are so many aspects of all these courses that are relatable to social work. So you need to sit down and think about it. Have you had volunteer experiences? Have you volunteered in your local community? Have you volunteered in your church? Have you volunteered in a hospital? Like, whatever volunteer experience you have, or have you, did you undertake any training that are relevant to the field of social work? Looking at the research that you've done about social work and what the course is about, have you read any book recently? Have you seen any news article recently that made you sit back and reflect on, the world, how the world is going, or just things around you that are relatable to social work? Basically, like, there are so many things that you can think of that you can relate to social work. Now you just need to, having done your research about what social work is about, then you have to think about your experience, your lived experience, your life in general, your personal experience, your educational experience, like I've mentioned, your work experience, volunteer experience, things you've read in the past, all these things. You just need to think about that. And as you're thinking about it, you need to write them down. Like, you need to, I don't know, open a Word document. If you're a paper person, take a book, write them down. Oh, this is what I've done. I studied accounting in school. I worked in this organization. This is what I used to do there. And this is how that is relevant to social work. I volunteered when I was in university. I was part of maybe the Rotract organization. I was part of, young business entrepreneurs organize, whatever you did in university, any extra curricular activities that you did that you think might be relevant to the field, just write these down, like, as subheadings, and write down what you did when you were there, when you were part of this organization, what you learned, and what kind of skills you developed in your past work experience. Just write all these things down without thinking too much about it. Just jot them down. Like, this is just the initial process of you, putting down your thoughts on paper without thinking about grammatical errors, proofreading, stuff like that. Just, write everything that comes to mind down. Then yes, that's really how you start. Just jot these things down. Then from there, you can begin to elaborate on your point, bearing in mind what the role of social work is. So you want to make sure that whatever experiences that you are jotting down are relevant experiences. We have so many experiences in life, right? Some of them would not necessarily be relevant to social work. So you want to make sure that everything you're writing down is relevant for the course that you're applying for. So yes, those are the three things I'll talk about. Just do some research about social work, like know the course. You're not expected to know everything, right? Because you're not a social work, but whatever information that you can find online, and if you know people who have studied the course before, like speak to them. Just do whatever research you need to get familiar with the course, then think about your own experiences and see which ones you can bring onto the course and write these things down. So these are very important first steps to take to begin to write your personal statement. And then when it comes to like starting the writing itself, it's just like an essay where you have like an introduction, you have a body, and then you have a conclusion that ties everything together, right? So as you've done that writing process that I talked about initially, just jotting everything down that comes to mind, bearing in mind the research that you've done about social work, it really gives you like a framework to begin writing. Then that way, after you've started elaborating on points, you can now begin to put them under the rights and places that you're supposed to be. So when it comes to writing your introduction, let's begin with that. There are so many ways that you can start. You can start by telling a story. We all have stories, we all have lived experiences. Maybe you've witnessed something before that is relevant for the course. Maybe you've experienced something personally in your family, in your work life, in your educational life that is relevant to social work. So you can start by telling them a story, and then from there you can tie in your motivation as to why the story they are telling you has motivated you to come and study the course in the first place. Or you can start by making like a bold statement. You know how we write essays, like you make a bold claim. Maybe you saw a quote somewhere, or you saw, I don't know, a tweet, whatever that you saw, you make a bold statement to begin with, and then from there you start making your points, tying it into your motivation for wanting to come and study social work. There are so many ways to begin essays, but I advise that maybe you go with the storytelling, because that's a very good way to appeal to people's emotions. And then because it's your story, like it becomes very relatable in that way. Personally, that's why I started with a story of my lived experience. Like I said from the beginning, I'm going to be reading my personal statement, not going into details. I'm going to read like general points for us to see, have an example of how you can go about writing your own personal statement. So really, you want to set the scene about the subjects. Like I said, you want to set the scene about the subjects because you've already done the research, right? And then you want to show your motivation for studying the subject. So if you're starting telling a story, that's a very good way to set the scene, and then you tie in your motivation to that. Or another way to do it is to set a scene about yourself, and then you need to show your suitability for the study. So you've told a story, you've told why that is your motivation for wanting to come to study. Then you need to start telling them why you're suitable for the course. Because remember, so many people are applying for these courses and they're trying to pick the best people. So you want to write a winning personal statement. So you want to really sell yourself in your personal statement, because yes, that's why that is, like, that is what that is there for you to tell them why you are best suited to come and study. It's like applying for a job. It's like a job interview. You need to sell yourself. So yes, guys, that's really for it. Like there's not much to write in it. The first tip that you'd get is for you to just start, and start in time, so that you have time to keep going back and forth. If you get stuck at a point, you know that, oh, there's time before the deadline, so I can step away from this for a bit, refresh my mind, and then come back to writing it. So start in time, like give yourself enough time to start writing the statement, and make sure you share experiences that are relevant to social work. Like I've said, we have so many experiences in life, but having done your research about what social work is about, you really want to be sharing experiences, whether educational or personal or work related, that are relevant to the course that you're applying for. And then you want to try to use practical examples. You don't want to like just making general statements like, oh, social workers need to be good team players, or need to be great communicators. You need to give examples of how you have modeled those qualities in your past experiences, whether that is in your education. Maybe when you were in university, you were a great team player. Don't just say that. You need to give an example of how you effectively contributed in a group setting, in a team setting. Like, what did you do that you think you did really well? Yeah, things like that. Like, give practical examples, give them examples of what you did in this instance, examples of how you were a great listener in a particular situation, or how you were a good communicator, or how you stood up for someone, or maybe you witnessed someone being discriminated against. Like, what feelings did those invoke in you? Like, what did you do in those situations? Like, practical examples of showing, like, in action, how you possess those qualities that you are talking about. So yes, and also try not to copy someone else's personal statement, because usually here, like, they take issues like plagiarism very seriously. Your application will just be rejected, because they have ways of finding out if these things are not original, if you get what I mean. So don't copy someone else's work. Try to write things that are personal to you, like make your personal statement unique to you. Even if you are using someone else's work, like just use it as an inspiration, an example to write your own. So yes, those are the tips that I have to share with you when it comes to writing your social work personal statement. So now we are going to go into reading my own personal statement. So like I mentioned earlier, I started off my own with a story. So let me read the first sentence that I have here. And my interest in studying for a master's degree in social work has developed over the last couple of years as a result of my own lived experiences and experience working with marginalized people in our society. Right? That was my opening statement. Then I went on to share a story of how I volunteered in a particular setting and talked specifically about this young lady that I worked with, and how I was able to help, how my organization was able to support her, and what she went on to achieve, and how I thought that everything tied in to help her achieve what she achieved. So yes, I told that story very briefly. Then I went on to say that this role has provided me with a valuable insight into working with vulnerable people and given me a desire to want to do more in terms of helping people out of difficult situations so that they can live a reasonably wholesome life. Right? So I have chosen to pursue a degree in social work as I believe it will equip me with the necessary skills to make a real difference in the lives of vulnerable people. So in short, I've told them when my interest developed in the course and why, like from what experience I shared, that we would have so many experiences. I shared a story of how I worked with this young lady and how that went on to motivate me to want to do more, which is why I'm trying to come in to do a master's in social work, because I believe it will equip me with the skills that I need to be able to help people more effectively, if that makes sense. So that was my first paragraph. And then I went on to talk about, me being aware that social work is not easy, that it is a challenging profession. But looking at the positive side, I highlighted why I thought, despite all these challenges, that social work was really important, and I wanted to be part of that process and that important role that it played in society. So I would read that briefly as well. And I'm not oblivious to the many challenges that come to the profession. Then I shared an example of a news that had a very common occurrence that happened in the UK years back, and what I thought about that, right? So I'm not going to read that here, but I highlighted, for me, what I said here was that these cases have highlighted areas on. I said that this case highlighted how challenging social work can be, but for me, positively, it also highlighted many areas of improvement, not just for social workers, but other professionals involved in the care and protection of vulnerable people, right? Then for me, this points to the fact that social work professionals play an extremely important role in the care and welfare of all vulnerable people in society. It takes hard work, compassion, dedication, and true professionalism to work in this environment. As a result of my own experiences, personal and professional, rather than being daunted, I am more committed to the work ahead and determined to do my best for all people that require care. Right? So I made them aware that I am aware of the social work environment, the challenges, but I'm also aware of the opportunity that exists to make a difference in people's lives. Then I went on to talk about my experience, my work experience. So as I mentioned earlier, I was a human resource and administrative assistant. So I went on to highlight some transferable skills that I gained from that work that I can bring into the role of a social worker. So I worked as a human resource and administrative assistant with this firm upon graduating from university with a bachelor's degree in HR. In this role, I developed skills such as managing highly confidential information of clients and employees, working as part of a team to achieve expected outcomes for clients, interagency working, including liaison with partner agencies such as, we used to work with this popular organization in Ghana, which I'm not going to mention here, for information and resources, communication, conflict resolution skills, etc. These skills are completely transferable to the role of a social worker, which involves working as part of a team and with multi-agencies, sensitively managing client information and managing conflict. So I basically highlighted skills that are relevant for social work that I had gained in my previous role. So that was what that paragraph was about. And I spoke about why I have chosen their institution, because I believe, because my goal was to ultimately qualify as a social worker, and I believe that that institution would be able to fully support me in achieving that goal. And I talked about being aware that doing a master's is not easy, but I thoroughly enjoyed my undergraduate university experience, and I'm looking forward to that challenge basically. Then I finally talked about how studying in the UK would give me a global exposure and perspective, and how that would help me once I eventually return back home to Ghana. So that is how I tied everything in. So as you can see, the logical flow, how I started with a story, then I made them aware that I'm really aware of what social work is about, what I'm getting myself into. I talked about my past experience and the skills that I could potentially bring to the role of a social worker, talked about their institution and why I am choosing them, and just the UK in general. So this is not like the standard. There are so many ways that you can go about your personal statements. Just make it relevant to the field of social work. And then finally, once you're done, try to get someone to proofread your work, your essay for you, because sometimes it can be hard for you to spot the mistakes that you've made in your essay on your own. So yeah, try to get someone else, like a second opinion, to read if anything that you've said is making sense, if it's clear enough, if it's free of grammatical errors, things like that. So yes, guys, it's that easy. Just start in time to give yourself the best chance of writing a winning personal statement. It's not that difficult, really. Yes, guys, and that's all I have to say in today's video. I wish you the very best in your application, and look forward to the next video where I talk about the social work interview process. And I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and leave me your thoughts in the comment section. If you have any video ideas that you'd like me to do, kindly leave that in the comment section, and I'll consider doing it as well. If you've watched up to this point and you're not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Just click on the red subscribe button down below. It's free. Help your girl reach her goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And I'm going to see you in my next one, guys.